Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. And for today's video, I will be showing you an updated version of how to set up Active Directory from scratch on a Windows server on a virtual machine. So this is going to be a nice project, a home lab project for those who are learning entry-level IT or wants to see if you can set up your own Active Directory and see if IT is for you. So this video is the start of the series where I'll be showing you how to build your own home project, starting with the basic Active Directory setup, and then we will have a series of video on GPO, DNS, Active Directory services, file servers, print servers, Windows servers, Linux servers, and more. So stay tuned for that if you're interested. In this video, I will show you how to install VMware Workstation Pro, install Windows Server 2022 on that VM, how to install Active Directory tools on Windows Server. We will have an activity on basic AD setup, like creating OU and accounts. I'll also explain Active Directory concepts like OU, group scopes, and group types, and also give you some tips and best practices. So if you're interested to learn how to set up Active Directory from scratch on a virtual machine, please keep on watching, and without further ado, let's get right into today's video. Okay, so for the first video in this series, I'm going to show you the step-by-step process on how to set up Active Directory from scratch on Windows Server 2022 on a virtual machine, which is VMware Workstation Pro, and everything will be free, and we will be using a free trial for all of this. You don't have to purchase any license for your home lab. So the first step is to install the virtual machine that we will be using, which is a VMware Workstation Pro. I'm also going to include all of the links that we are using here for this video in the description box below if you want to try this home lab activity. So in this video, I'm using VMware Pro. This is now free to use for personal use only. I chose this because I've been using this for a while now, and you are also free to use other virtual machines if you are used to other ones. So if you click on the link down below, it will show you the download links for the VMware product. So we are going to be using Workstation Pro in this activity. So just click on that, and you should have a login for the Broadcom. This is free to register. So if you don't have the login for this, you can sign up for the account. So if you don't have an account yet, just click on this, click here, and then you can register your email address in here, and then it should just register you once you filled all the information, and you should be able to log in now. Okay, so the username is your email address, and once you have logged in, you will see all the downloads in here, and you should just select the one for personal use for Windows if you're using a Windows machine for your VM. So I'm just gonna choose the latest version in here, and it should download it, or it will take me to another page where I can download it, and I'll just wait for it to finish so I can install it. Okay, once it's finished downloading, just click on the executable, and you should be able to install it now. It's just keep on clicking next, accept, and next until it installs. Usually it takes a few minutes. So while we're waiting for that to install, we can now go to our Microsoft link where we can get the download for the ISO that we're going to use for our Windows server. This is what we're going to install on our virtual machine. So we are using 2022. So normally when you are new to this, it's your first time doing this. For example, if you search for the Windows Server 2022, and you can see that you can get started for free for a trial, you can click on the download the ISO in here, and it's going to ask you to register. So once you've registered, that's when you can download the ISO. So just fill up all of this in here, and you'll be able to see this page where you can download the ISO. So I'm just going to go ahead and download it. It usually takes a couple of minutes, like depends on your internet connection, but let me check, like 5 to 10 minutes the most. So while VMware is installing, you can also go ahead and download the ISO. Okay, I think it's done downloading for me. I'm just gonna check on my downloads. Okay, so you should see the server ISO in here when it's done downloading. So now we can open the VMware Workstation Pro. It should added a shortcut on your desktop. So since we're using personal use, we can choose this first option in here because we don't have a license. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. the next step that you're gonna do is to create a new virtual machine in here. Okay, so just click on next on that, and for this, just select I will install the operating system later. I have learned that if you do it through here, it doesn't really work properly later when we set it up. So just skip that part and select this one, and then click on next, and then select Windows Server 2022, and here that's gonna be the server we're using. So we can keep the name in here and just click on next. And maximum disk size would be, maybe it depends on the specs of your computer, but for me, I'm just gonna put 20 in here for now. I don't think I'm gonna need that much. Okay, so click on finish after, and then you should see that it created your virtual machine. Okay, so these are the specs for it. So for now, let's right click on it and go to settings. Okay, now click on the CD, DVD, SATA in here. This is where we are gonna add the ISO image. Click on browse and go to your downloads and click on the server ISO that we just downloaded earlier. Click on OK. Okay, let's click on power on this virtual machine. So it's gonna boot up the virtual machine, and just press any key. So after you pressed any key quickly, it's gonna load the Windows image in here. So sometimes you're gonna miss this. So if you missed pressing a key, it will show this and it won't load the ISO. So what you will do is right click on this and shut down the virtual machine and start over. So once it boots and you see the message earlier where you have to press a key, you have to press it really quickly to get into this, so it will load the setup. Okay, so once you get this window, click on next and install now. Okay, we are gonna choose the desktop experience standard evaluation because we want our server with the GUI. This one just has the commands, it doesn't have the GUI, so that's what we wanted. Click on next and just accept. Click on accept here, and then do this custom install Microsoft Server, and it'll just show you the drive allocation in here. Just make sure that this is correct and just click on next and just wait for it to finish. Okay, so just type in the password that you want for admin. Make sure to remember it and make sure to type something. Click on finish, and you should have your VM ready with Windows Server 2022. Okay, so just log in with your credentials here as admin, and then the next step will be to install Active Directory tools on the server. Just to check what server version we have, you can do the WinVer command in here and it'll show you the Windows Server and the version. So we have 21H2 Windows Server 2022. Also, this is a free trial, so it only lasts for 180 days, and I think that's around like 6 months. So that's plenty of time to play around and build your Active Directory and Windows Server that you can practice with and put on your resume. And once this has expired, you can still build like another one. You can download another ISO, but you're gonna have to build everything from scratch. Okay, so for the next step, we are installing Active Directory in here. So Server Manager will pop up right away once you log in. So open that and go to the Manage on the right hand side here. Go to Add roles and features, click on that and click on next, and just select the role-based installation in here. Click next, and you should select Active Directory domain services. This will pop up and click on add features. Okay, so if there's other tools that you need like remote access or Hyper-V, go ahead and add all of those. So yes, just make sure that you have group policy management checked in there, and it should be automatically checked too once you select Active Directory in here. So click next here, just keep clicking next and keep hitting next in here. Now it's just listing everything that you have selected. Click on install and just wait for it to finish the installation. It's gonna let you know the progress in here. It might take a few minutes also, so just check on it, but make sure to not close this window during the installation because we are gonna do a very important step after. Okay, so once it's finished, you can see that this bar is full. You can click on this promote this server to a domain controller. This is very important to do after because we are setting this up as our domain controller because we are doing this from scratch. We don't have a domain controller yet. So click on that and it should show you this window, and we are gonna add a new forest in here, and this is where you will be typing your domain name for your Active Directory in here. I am gonna call it East Charmer in here, .local. Always add .local because we are just doing the local domain in here. If you don't add .local, it's gonna show an error message. So add .local and click on next. Okay, and select the most recent in here that they have, which is 2016, and just type in a password for your domain, something that you will remember, and click on next. Okay, just click on next until it finishes. Okay, so you would see the domain name. It's gonna be what you typed in earlier. Keep clicking on next, 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 and once it's verified, you will see in here if everything is okay. You should be able to click on install down here. Okay, so we now passed the prerequisite check in here, so we can click on install, and it will take a few minutes for this to finish. Okay, so it has to reboot your computer or server because it's gonna install the Active Directory tool, so just wait for that to finish. Okay, now that it's done, we should be able to log in. Now you can see that you're using the domain. You have the domain now, which was what you named earlier, plus the admin account. Okay, so let's check if they were installed. So usually you can type it in, but you can also see it under the Windows admin tools here. So you'd see all the different tools that we installed, and we are gonna do Active Directory users and computers for this video. This is the very basic that we do on a daily basis. We do a lot in Active Directory, so this is gonna be our activity for the basic Active Directory setup for this video. So the goal in here is to set up Active Directory from scratch, which we have done. So the next steps would be to create OUs or organizational units, then create user accounts and groups within these OUs, and I'm going to show you later on how we use Active Directory on a daily basis in the workplace. So I'm going to give you real world examples on how we use Active Directory. Okay, so just a quick review if you are new to IT and Active Directory. So when we say OU, it means organizational unit, and it's like a container which contains different kinds of objects like users, computers, servers, groups, and these objects are all inside one organizational unit. So it's like a container or like a folder that has all the different objects like files, for example, when you think about a Windows folder. So it's basically the same concept. Okay, so let's open Active Directory users and computers now. Okay, so as you can see, you now have a domain in here, which is the .local domain that we named earlier. And if you click on the drop down in here, you will see the built-in OUs in here. So these are OUs, this computer user, so these are default that is already included when you create a domain. Okay, so first in our activity is to create different OUs, which is USA, Europe, and Asia. So what you will do is to right click on the domain in here and select new. You will see organizational unit in here and just type in the name. So click on USA in here and it should show up. So do the rest for the other OUs. Okay, so going back to the activity earlier, it says to create groups within the OUs and create users under the different groups. So to create a group in here, actually let's create, I'm going to show you what it's typically structured in the workplace. So usually under this geographical OU, there is another OU, so you can put an OU within an OU in here. Usually it's categorized by different objects. For example, you would like to put a computer OU in here for all of the assets, the computer that you have. Then we can also put the users, because they're a different category for the groups or container. Then we can add, for example, servers in here, just to make it simple, and do the rest for the other OUs as well. Okay, once you finish that, you can see the different OUs. You can also minimize this so that it won't look clutter, especially if you are just gonna use USA in here. So the next activity would be to create different groups under these OUs or containers. For example, for users, typically in the workplace, we have different departments for our company. So same goes to how we structure Active Directory. We want to group the users into different departments as well. So you can create different groups under the users. For example, you can click on new and select group in here. And for example, you can type in IT in here, and as you can see in here, there are different options for group scope and group type in here. So I'm going to discuss what the differences between those options are and which one you should select for the group that you're creating. Okay, so before we proceed, if you already know what the group scope and group types are, you can skip this part where I explain everything and just go ahead and watch the activity and lab and hands-on part. Okay, so there's 3 different options for the group scope. We have universal, global, and domain local. So this is the table that you can check, and typically we use the global because this is usually the group that can be used within the same domain. For example, if I select the global group scope in here, this IT group can be used under the East Charmer local domain. So it can be accessed by anything that's under this East Charmer local. So the universal goes to different domains, so it has more access. For example, I have 2 domains in here. So for example, there's a domain in here aside from East Charmer. So if I create the IT group in here, it can be accessed under East Charmer domain and the other domain that's outside East Charmer. So that's universal. Okay, so now let's talk about the group type. We have 2 in here. So we do have the first type is the security groups in here. So the security groups are used to assign permissions to shared resources. And it also has 2 types in here, which is the user rights, and you can also assign permissions. So this is the group that you create if you want to give permissions to shared resources. And you can create a security group that just assigns user rights or assigns permission. Those are 2 different kinds of or types that you can do with security groups. To explain it better, I have examples in here on the user rights. So user rights also has 2 kinds. It has built-in security groups or custom security groups. So built-in security groups are the ones that are default, that's already included in Active Directory, that you don't have to create because they are already there. For example, domain admins. Domain admins is just giving access to a user, it's basically giving full control or full access to a user, like being able to manage, edit, modify, delete anything from the domain. So domain admins is a built-in security group and you don't have to create it because it's already there. I will show you later on. Also, another built-in security group is the domain desktop user, and this is usually for the users who needs remote access or those users that use remote desktop applications to access different servers remotely. So that's also built in, you don't have to create it. It's already included in the Windows tools. The other type of user right that you can create as a security group is a custom security group, which is the one that you can create based on the rights that you want to give to the user. So this is something that you can create and modify depending on your preferences or the needs of the users. So for example, this can be done through like different departments, because in every company there's different departments like finance department, HR department, IT department. So if you want to customize a right based on the department, you can create a custom security group that wasn't a built-in or wasn't already included, because this is more for what your company needs. So you can create a security group for the finance department that can access or give rights to to the financial data or application, and you can do the same for the HR department. So that's one type of user right that you can create through security group. So there's also another kind, which is giving permissions for shared resources. So this is different from the user rights. So user rights, to make it simple, is something the user can do, and for the permissions, what the user can get into or what the user can access. So there's like different kinds of access that is available for a user. There's a full control, there's a modified, there's read only, so it really depends on what kind of access you're giving them. So for example, you can give file and folder permissions, the shared file and folder permissions, different access. Also by department. For example, you want the finance department to be able to access the finance folders, and you can also have other departments to have access to the finance folder, but maybe only read mode or read only, because they can't make any changes. Like the HR, for example, they just can view stuff but they can't add or edit. So that's something that you can do through security groups as well. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, there's two types of groups. There's the security group and the distribution group. So distribution group, or the distro list as we call it in the workplace, is not giving access or giving permissions. This is usually used for email distribution list to send emails to collections or groups of people. So this is an email list where we give users membership on what email list they can receive. For example, these are example of distribution groups that we usually use in the workplace. So there's a group that is called All Employees, which is an email list that all the employees in a company gets. And sometimes we can also categorize this or group this by department. So for example, we have a finance or IT or HR distro group. Of course, there's emails that we just want the finance department to receive, same with the HR department, so we can also group it through that distribution group. And can be also role based depending on what role they have, like manager, executive, admins. So if you know the different group scope and group type, that is really important when you're creating groups, so you would know what they're gonna be used for. So for example, we have the IT group that is created in here. It's gonna be a security group because it's gonna give user rights to only the IT departments, for example. So let's go ahead and create that group. For example, you want another group and it's a security group. I'm just gonna create another group which is gonna be called DL, which is short for distribution list or distro list, because it's gonna be a distribution group. So DL IT admins, for example, IT admins, because this is gonna be an email that will be received by all of the IT professionals or IT staff. So I'm just going to change this to distribution because we want this as an email list. Okay, so that's another group that you can create. All right, so that's how you create groups. Now you can just go ahead and create different users here, add different people. So same step, just click on new, create user, just type in the full name, for example, East Termer, and then just create a log on name. Typically, we don't do this manually. There's a script that is ran when we create new users, especially when we onboard new employees. I'm just showing you this so you can create your home lab to practice on. So this is what we do. We just type in a password for that user. Okay, and then this one depends on your company policies too. So just click on next and you will see each charmer has been added as a user. So you can go ahead and do this to all the other OU that you have for your lab. So when you start working as an IT professional in a company, most of the time or 100% of the time, Active Directory and Windows Server is already set up. So you don't have to build it from scratch. So it's already there. There's already a structure for everything, so you don't need to be creating users. Typically, we don't really create users manually. Okay, so I have here a more detailed activity for you guys to try. So this is just a list of what you can do for this for this activity. Okay, so I think that's it for the most basic tasks that you can do and for the most basic activities that you can do in Active Directory users and computers. So this is only the first part and the first video of the series of home labs that I'm gonna be sharing with you. So at least now you have a Windows server that you can use to play around with the different tools, and you have installed Active Directory, so now you can practice your Active Directory skills that you can also put on your resume. And I hope you guys learned something from today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.